Bradley Beal is a Phoenix Sun, somehow. The Wizards ended up trading their longtime star shooting guard to the Phoenix Suns in exchange for Chris Paul, Landry Shamet, some first-round pick swaps, we're not entirely sure what years those are in, and multiple second-round picks, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski. Now, this was an interesting saga to watch develop over the past couple of days, as the two destinations that Bradley Beal was willing to waive his no-trade clause for, yes, he had a no-trade clause, were the Phoenix Suns and Miami Heat. Miami, of course, only has ammunition for one star, and they did not give it up for Bradley Beal. Now, if Bradley Beal was willing to go to the Miami Heat, they certainly could have beat Phoenix's offer, as Phoenix basically fleeced value-wise. So the fact that Bradley Beal is not in Miami says to me he didn't actually want to go there and wasn't willing to waive his no-trade clause to become a Heat, or Miami was holding out for something else. And there was a report after this trade went through from one Chris Haynes, who's kind of becoming a dreaded name for me. Haynes tweeted, quote, "Miami's focus is Portland superstar Damian Lillard, with the genuine belief that this could be the offseason the veteran guard seeks a change of scenery, league sources tell NBA on TNT and at Bleacher Report." We're gonna do this all over again for the millionth freaking time. But before I get into that, let me just say, I don't think the Phoenix Suns are some unbeatable team. While it was a definite win for them value-wise, they didn't really have any assets, and Washington basically got back nothing for Bradley Beal. It's not a great trade fit-wise. The Suns now have 4 guys on max contracts: Booker, Beal, Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Ayton. They no longer have a starting point guard. They could bring Cameron Payne back. He has a non-guaranteed contract worth $6.5 million, but Phoenix obviously doesn't have a point guard. They also don't have a bench, because other than those 4 and Cam Payne, the only other player on the Phoenix Suns payroll right now is Ish Wainwright, who has a team option for next season. So you're talking about 6 players for the Suns, and then based on the new CBA, right now, they would only have minimum contracts to fill out an entire bench and figure out the starting point guard position. I thought Phoenix needed to increase their depth and get better defensively. And this trade, while it is for a star in Bradley Beal, is basically punting on both those ideas, unless Phoenix can turn around and fleece in a DeAndre Ayton trade and maybe get the 10th pick from Dallas, couple good role players, and then flip that 10th pick for something. I don't know. It's going to be tough, though, with the lack of contracts for the Phoenix Suns. So we'll see what James Jones has up his sleeve next, but it's going to be really hard to make the defense better than it was last season, and it's going to be hard for the Suns to fill out depth. And Bradley Beal and Devin Booker next to each other is kind of interesting. Maybe Booker plays the point, but I'm not a big fan of that. Or Phoenix goes small and plays Booker and Beal with the 2 and the 3 guard spots. Phoenix is going to have some flaws next year that I think can be exploited in a playoff series. I think they do have the talent to make a serious, legitimate run. I think they're contenders for sure, but I don't think this is one of those trades that makes Phoenix the team to be in the West over a team like the Denver Nuggets, who just won the championship. So this is one of those star trades where the fit's kind of strange, but it is a big name, joining 2 other big names, forming a big 3, because I'm not going to consider DeAndre Ayton a part of that. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in Phoenix for the rest of the offseason and then next year. But let's tie this back to your Portland Trail Blazers, or at least if you're a Blazer fan watching this video. Apparently the Miami Heat are just hoping that Damian Lillard becomes available. And a lot of Blazer fans are worried because Chris Haynes was the one who tweeted that tweet I shared earlier. And Chris Haynes has already been called out by Dame for not speaking for him regarding a report earlier in the offseason that didn't come from Dame. So Chris Haynes has other sources, and when you look at the way this tweet is formatted, and all the tweet says is Miami's focus is Damian Lillard, with the belief that this could be the offseason the veteran guard seeks a change of scenery. Could. If you've watched previous streams or my previous video on DeAndre Ayton, you'll know that I emphasize this word whenever it's tweeted out regarding news or potential trades. The word could means absolutely nothing. Miami's focus is Dame, with the belief that it could be possible. Nothing about this tweet says, oh, Dame's gonna seek a change of scenery and blah, blah, blah. Like, this tweet is basically completely nothing. All it says to me is Miami has the pipe dream of Damian Lillard. Now, you'll know that this is the first offseason I've actually worried a bit about Dame potentially wanting out, and that's if the Portland front office potentially lied to him in terms of, oh, we're going to trade the 3rd overall pick, and then nothing becomes available. But there have been reports that Dame would be okay with using the 3rd pick. There's been reports in a wide spectrum. There's been so much on Damian Lillard that it's hard to read into really anything. There is a chance that Dame might want out this offseason. I can't say that there's not a chance like I have in off seasons before. The organization's in a weird spot, and I don't know what they told Dame, but if they go back on their word, that could be very messy for the franchise. But I would not assume that he's becoming available whatsoever this offseason. The Blazers don't even necessarily have to trade him. It would be Dame seeking out a trade for the first time in his career, and then he'd have to want to go to Miami to get a trade to Miami. Like, he'd specifically have to force his way there, and I don't know if Dame's willing to do all that. I think Brooklyn could offer a better trade package, in my opinion, but Nets fans have driven me crazy all offseason, so hopefully none of them are watching this. But for all the Blazer fans that want Dame traded this offseason, this Bradley Beal trade should worry you. Because it's lazily been put out there that Portland can get a haul for Damian Lillard. Portland can get a ton for him and really spark their rebuild. Drafting Scoot with the 3rd overall pick. I love how that's just been the assumption, and now Scoot's the betting favorite to go number 2. But Portland should draft Scoot and then get a haul for Dame, and then they got Sharp and Simons and blah, 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 blah. And the big part of that is they'll get a haul for Dame. We've taken a look at basically every team out there, and a lot of teams that have assets don't really have a need to trade for Damian Lillard because they're either rebuilding or they have an entrenched point guard, like a John Morant or a Steph Curry, etc. A lot of the teams that would want Damian Lillard don't have a ton of assets. Miami has some. They got like 3 first-round picks they can trade, maybe 4, I forget, and Tyler Hero, which I would want flipped to a 3rd team. Sure, that's a decent amount of picks if Dame becomes available, but the problem is Bradley Beal had a no-trade clause. And the reason Phoenix was able to get him without giving up basically anything was because Bradley Beal forced his way to Phoenix. The problem is, if Damian Lillard wants out and wants to go to a specific destination, it puts Portland in a pickle where it's as if Damian Lillard has a no-trade clause. Now, Portland could trade him elsewhere against his wishes, but that's going to reflect very poorly on the Blazers front office. Or they can trade Dame where he would want to go, and that team would have a ton of leverage. There's a legitimate chance that Portland could get absolutely fleeced, just like the Washington Wizards did, and then instead of jump-starting their rebuild, Portland is stuck as a late lottery team to maybe 8 or 7 seed for the next 5 to 6 years. If Damian Lillard gets traded this offseason, there is a legitimate chance that Portland just ends up right back where they started in NBA purgatory, where they're not good enough to make a playoff run, but they're not bad enough to get top draft picks. The utter assumption that Portland, by trading Damian Lillard, is basically guaranteed to result in a contender down the line is extremely far-fetched and not realistic, especially when you look at the possibility that Portland might not get back as much for Damian Lillard as those people expect. This is why I've been against trading Damian Lillard. This is why I've been for building around Damian Lillard this offseason. I think it's much more likely for Portland to utilize the assets that they currently have in order to build a winner around Dame going into next season than it is for them to build a winner, getting back cents on the dollar for Damian Lillard in a trade, and then hoping that all their young guys pan out to the most optimistic possibilities that anyone can foresee. But regardless, today, another Western Conference team got something done. The Phoenix Suns landed another star. That's 2 stars that they've landed in the past 5 months. And for Joe Cronin in the Portland Trail Blazers front office, it's been excuse after excuse after excuse. Some of them are legitimate, but at some point, this front office has to get something done to help Damian Lillard win. And when you look at a team like the Phoenix Suns, who have 0 assets, being able to get something done like a Bradley Beal trade, yes, the trade clause thing played a part in that, but Phoenix had every excuse for not being able to pull off anything good this offseason. I said that they were in the toughest position for a GM to handle this offseason. James Jones got kind of bailed out by Bradley Beal wanting to be there, but also his work is just starting because filling out the rest of that roster is going to be tough. But regardless, With Portland, with all the assets that they now have, the 3rd pick in a loaded NBA draft, the 23rd pick, the ability to get all their future firsts back, Anthony Simons as well, that can be thrown on top of a deal, who's a 23-year-old that just scored 21 points per game on solid efficiency with 4 assists and has only been getting better and better, puts up better numbers as a lead guard. That's how Cronin has to pitch him, by the way. There is no excuses left for Joe Cronin not to get something done this offseason. This offseason is his true litmus test, and this is where Joe Cronin will show you who he truly is. Either it'll be as a GM who panicked and overpaid for a player because he wasn't able to negotiate well enough, or maybe he lands a great deal and shows you that, wow, there was some struggles in the past, maybe he needed a little bit of time to get his feet wet as a GM, build relationships with opposing GMs, and maybe circumstances really made his job tough in the past. Or the third option is he doesn't get anything done and he's just a GM that can't get something done. There is no excuse for that. He has the assets, he's in position to do so, and sure, you can try and look at things in a sort of way that'll always excuse a GM, or always excuse Joe Cronin, but at some point, the best GMs in the league get things done. They make things happen. And if Joe Cronin isn't one of those guys, then he's not the right GM for this team. We're gonna find out who Joe Cronin is in the next week, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating. And sure, if it goes as poorly as possible, that could end up in Damian Lillard being gone. But that's not what my expectation is. Joe Cronin, please tell me I'm not being too optimistic and believing too much in your ability to get things done. With that being said, that's a wrap for this video. Let me know what you think of the Bradley Beal trade down in the comment section below. And let me know what you think of the latest chapter in this Damian Lillard might get traded finally saga. With that being said, I'm out of here. I'll catch you in the next video. Until then, as always, peace out. Go Blazers.